the Syrian refugee crisis and the effects to Turkey's economics, an overview. Since 2010, Syrian refugees has been flocking into the borders of Turkey, fleeing from the civil war that has been taking place in Syria ever since. The ISIS, in clashes with the Syrian rebel forces, backed by US-led coalition, against the President Bashar al-Assad, makes Syria a battleground for these three competing forces. Recently, Russia, United Kingdom has declared to join the war, and this has made the situation much worse. There are several effects resulting from the influx of immigrants flocking into Turkey from Syria. The most obvious one would be the effect on inflation. Whenever Syrian immigrants flocks into Turkey, the rental rates of houses increases significantly. The increase in rental houses rates is due to the increase in population in Turkey. Landlords in Turkey take advantage of the arrivals of Syrian immigrants into Turkish borders. They always impose higher rent towards the Syrians, of which the Syrians are willing to pay higher than the locals, which would eventually push up the rental prices in Turkey. This would cause the cost of living in Turkey to go up, and therefore results in a general increase in price level, lead to inflation in Turkey. If we were to analyze the effect of the arrivals of Syrian immigrants into Turkish borders in terms of employment, we will find that in the long run, results of influx of Syrian refugees in Turkey, a higher rate of unemployment amongst the local Turkish people. Firms in general tend to lay off local workers, which demand higher wages in favor of the cheap labor provided by the Syrian refugees. In the long run, we would see that they would push down the wages in the labor market and therefore force some laborers to go out of the labor market, and results in high unemployment rate in Turkey. The unemployment rate in Turkey rises over 10.1% in 2015 compared to only 8.43% in 2012. In contrary to all the negative effects experienced by Turkey as a result of influx of Syrian immigrants into Turkish borders, the investment in Turkey soars over 278 million in 2013 compared to only 133 million in 2011. This is due to the increase in the labor force in the economy, which would eventually lead to higher investment for the firms. But of course, this higher investment expense of losing job opportunities to Syrian refugees from the local Turkish. If we were to analyze the situation in Turkey using the Keynesian model, we would find that the effect of Syrian immigrants on Turkey's labor market in the short run, 2010 to 2013, is that when Syrian immigrants enter Turkey, population increases, which will eventually increase the labor force in Turkey. If we were to look at the labor market, the supply curve shifts to the right as a result of increase in population, and therefore the level of unemployment increases from NS0 to NS1. As a result of that, the aggregate supply curve shifts to the right, and price goes down from P0 to P1. Firms will react to decrease in price, and therefore they would shift the demand curve for labor to the left, which would result in a much slower wage rates from W1 to W2, but unemployment in general fall from 11.4% to 8.43%. This new level of employment induces the production of Turkey, which eventually induces the rate of growth of GDP in Turkey to 8.77% per year. Of course, in the long run, the case is much different. Labor has enough time to adjust their information to the actual decrease in price, and therefore they react to the fall in nominal wages. More labor are unwilling to work and they exit the labor market. This can be shown in the graph by a leftward shift of the labor supply curve from NS1 to NS2. Wage rate goes up to W2, but it results from a higher rate of unemployment from 8.43% to 10.1% in 2015. The lower rate of employment, of course, results in a lower level of output measured in terms of GDP in Turkish economy. In 2010, the level of GDP for Turkey was 823.025 billion, but it falls down to 798.332 billion. This is due to the rising level of unemployment in the Turkey labor market. As a result of the decrease in labor supply, aggregate supply curve shifts to the left, and therefore it rises up the equilibrium price from P1 to P2. Simultaneously, the aggregate demand curve also shifts to the right due to the increase in number of population. Therefore, the output level falls from 822.025 billion euro to 798.332 billion in 2015. The increase in price level signals the phenomena of inflation experienced by Turkey in 2015.
Let's look this analysis from Islamic perspective. In the Islamic perspective, the main point is the responsibility of Muslims as brothers. In Islam, a Muslim is responsible to help others in need due to the concept of brotherhood. This concept is very main concept in Islam. It instills the love to other person, to our friends, to our dear Muslims. So therefore, it is very important. So because of this, a Muslim is responsible to help the other person. So how they are going to help them? By providing them the sense of peace, which is aman, to those in needs and also who are seeking refugee and asylum. So in hadith, Rasulullah SAW said, whosoever is fulfilling the needs of his brother, and Allah is fulfilling his needs. Muslims also must provide help to everyone, either Muslim or non-Muslim. They must be indifferent toward others, because we help them in the sense of humanity. Also in the sense of we want to help them, to give them their rights, their right to live. As Allah said in the Quran, and if any of the disbelievers seeks your protection, then grant him protection so that he may hear the word of Allah, and then escort him to where he will be secure. There are many people who are in need in this world, especially when there are refugees and also refugees from other countries. How the priority should be given? So the priority is must given to those who are more vulnerable to the harm. For example, people in warring states is given the highest priority, and country full of injustice and also economic insecurities. For example, in terms of age and gender, men get lesser priority rather than kids, women and old men, because they didn't get higher harm, and kids and women when there are war are endangered, easily killed when there is war. So that's why they are given more priorities rather than men. Why should we protect the refugees? It is because in Islam, life is precious, because it is shown from the Maqasid Sharia that protection of life is the first aim of the Sharia, which is we say the life of people must be protected. So if someone is asking you to be protected from being killed, therefore you must protect him if you have the capacity to protect him. So because of that, when a refugee came to a country, so it is a responsibility for that country to give them the protection from the harm. That's why it is so the challenges for the country that are giving protection to the refugees, there are some challenges. One of it is two different perspectives on rights, which is Islamic perspective and UDHR. It is the problem on rights of restitution of property to refugees, which is male is getting higher than female in Islam. But however, from UDHR they are saying that it is must be equal between men and women. The problem lies there, between the two different perspectives on rights. So, and also another issues between refugees and also the communities, such as legal working status, education, healthcare and social issues. This is because some of the refugees come with diseases without immunity to the diseases, it needs for the government spending for that. It must be solved by the government after they are taking the refugees into their country. The conclusion that we can make from the analysis on the Syrian refugees in Turkey, which is the responsibility outweighs the implications. We need to see the responsibility rather than the implication to the country. Because why? The implication can be managed by the country. But however, if we don't take the responsibility of taking the refugees, so we are saying that we are not giving any care to their rights to live. So it is exactly quite sinful to us. Why do I say that the implication is outweighed by responsibility? Because implication can be changed, is affected by the government policy in the country. So therefore, the short run effect and also the long run effect, it can be nullified by the policy of the government on the economy of the country. So how the government will make sure that there is a change in the labor market, and how they're going to increase the employment. Exactly, it depends on the government expenditure, government planning. So it's not so much on the refugees. So this is different from the responsibility of the government.